Courtrooms are meant to be places of order, but sometimes emotions run wild. I've spent a lot of my career observing human behavior, watching people under immense pressure. I've seen denial, I've seen anger, I've seen desperation. But nothing quite prepares you for the moment when the gavel falls and a person's future is sealed. That's when the mask often slips, and the raw, unfiltered reality of their situation hits them. And for some, it's a moment that pushes them far beyond their breaking point. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most insane courtroom freakouts after sentencing. We're going to look at the moments when the solemn decorum of the court is shattered by pure, unadulterated human emotion. These aren't just outbursts. They are complete meltdowns that turn a hall of justice into a scene of utter chaos. Let's get started. We begin our countdown with a moment that perfectly illustrates the sudden, crushing weight of reality. For many defendants, the entire legal process can feel surreal, almost like a play they are watching from a distance. They might even convince themselves that somehow, things will work out in their favor. They build a wall of denial, brick by brick. But a prison sentence is a wrecking ball, and when it hits, that wall comes crumbling down. In this first clip, a defendant stands before the judge, calm, almost detached. You can see him processing the words, 25 years to life. For a split second, there's nothing. Just a blank stare. It's the calm before the storm. Then it happens. The defendant's face contorts. His knees buckle as if his strings have been cut. He lets out a scream that doesn't even sound human. He collapses to the floor, not in a faint, but in a complete physical and emotional shutdown. His body convulses on the courtroom floor as his defense attorney rushes to his side, looking utterly helpless. The bailiffs move in, but they seem unsure of how to proceed. How do you restrain a man who has already been broken? Narrator VO. In a courtroom, the defendant isn't the only one on trial. Narrator VO. Their entire family is there with them, sharing the anxiety. Narrator VO. They sit in the gallery, silent observers bound by the rules. Narrator VO. Then the verdict is read. Narrator VO. A sentence is handed down that feels like a blow to the whole family. Narrator VO. Her face, prayerful, snaps into righteous fury. Narrator VO. The switch flips. Narrator VO. She's on her feet. Narrator VO. No, you can't take my son. Narrator VO. She launches forward. Narrator VO. Then leaps, clearing the wooden barrier. Narrator VO. Mid-air. Desperate athleticism. Narrator VO. She lands on the other side. Narrator VO. She runs straight for the judge's bench, pointing and shouting. Narrator VO. The courtroom erupts. Narrator VO. They pivot and rush her. Narrator VO. 3 officers tackle and restrain her. Narrator VO. Her voice cracks with anger and heartbreak. Narrator VO. A stark reminder, crime and punishment ripple outward. Her leap was a desperate, futile stand against the system. When you're facing years, maybe even a lifetime in a small cell, the idea of freedom can become an obsession. For most defendants, the moment of sentencing is a moment of surrender. But for a select few, it triggers a primal, instinctual response, fight-flight. That's exactly what we see in our number 8 clip. The defendant, a man in his late 20s, has just been sentenced. It's in this brief, transitional moment that the defendant sees an opening. It's a tiny window of opportunity, a sliver of a chance. With a sudden explosive movement, he shoves his chair back and bolts. He dodges his own stunned attorney and makes a mad dash for the courtroom exit. The initial reaction from everyone is pure shock. The illusion of order is shattered in an instant. Bailiffs shout and give chase, their heavy boots thudding on the floor. The defendant reaches the main doors and fumbles with the handle, his hands shaking with adrenaline. For a heart-stopping moment, you think he might actually make it. The camera captures the pure panic and desperation on his face. Before he can get the door open, he is swarmed by bailiffs. His desperate dash for freedom has only succeeded in chaining him down more securely. Words have power. In a courtroom, words are carefully chosen, weighed, and measured. But, when a defendant feels stripped of all power, sometimes the only weapon they have left is their voice. Our number 7 spot is a masterclass in courtroom contempt. We're watching a defendant who has maintained his innocence throughout the trial. So, when the judge hands down a sentence of several years, you can see the disbelief on his face quickly curdle into pure, unadulterated rage. He stands up straight, looks the judge directly in the eye, and prepares to go on the offensive. What follows is not just an outburst, it is a symphony of profanity. He starts with the judge, questioning his intelligence, questioning his parentage, questioning his moral character. The court reporter's fingers fly across the keys, trying to capture every single vulgar word for the official record. He doesn't stop with the judge. He then turns his vitriol towards the prosecuting attorney, The prosecutor stands there taking it, a slight, almost imperceptible smirk on their face. Bailiffs move in to restrain him, but he continues to shout even as they are dragging him from the courtroom. His voice echoes down the hallway, a final, defiant roar of profanity against the system. Sometimes anger and frustration boil over to a point where words simply fail. The rage becomes so intense that it can only be expressed physically. Our number 6 moment, a courtroom descending into pure physical chaos. The defendant has just been sentenced. He's a large, imposing man. As the bailiff moves to cuff him, something snaps. The defendant doesn't just resist, he explodes. He shoves the bailiff back with tremendous force. The officer stumbles into the defense table. Papers fly everywhere. The defendant's face is a mask of pure fury. The defendant, completely unhinged, starts throwing punches. The courtroom, once a place of intellectual combat, is now a boxing ring. The defense attorney dives for cover. The judge is on his feet, yelling for security. It takes several officers to subdue the man. It's a chaotic, desperate struggle. A taser crackles. The defendant goes limp, convulsing on the floor. The aftermath. Utter chaos. The defense table overturned. The defendant forcibly restrained, his rebellion crushed. Not all courtroom freakouts are born of anger violence. Some come from a place of profound, bottomless sorrow. A complete emotional breakdown can be just as disruptive and, in many ways, far more unsettling to witness. Our number 5 clip is a difficult one to watch. The defendant, a young woman, stands as her sentence is read. It's a long one. As the final words leave the judge's mouth, her composure, which was already fragile, completely shatters. There's no screaming, no violence. Instead, her body is racked with sobs. She doubles over as if she's been punched in the stomach. Please, no, please, I have kids, please don't do this to me. Her own lawyer tries to comfort her, putting a hand on her shoulder, but she is inconsolable. The courtroom falls silent, except for the sound of her weeping. The judge looks down at his papers, perhaps unable to meet her gaze. The bailiffs approach her gently, a stark contrast to how they handle violent defendants, but she can't move. She isn't being defiant, she is simply paralyzed by her own sorrow. There is an unwritten rule, a sacred line that one does not cross in a courtroom. You do not threaten the judge. The judge is the ultimate symbol of the court's authority, the embodiment of the law itself. Our number 4 moment features a defendant who decides to cross that line. The defendant has been impassive for most of the sentencing, but as the final sentence is pronounced, a switch is flipped. His blank expression is replaced by one of cold, calculated fury. He waits for the judge to finish speaking, then, in a low, menacing voice that cuts through the silence, he speaks. He looks directly at the judge, locks eyes.
I'm going to find you. When I get out, I'm going to find you. And your family.
The words hang in the air. The casual, conversational tone makes it even more terrifying. The reaction is instantaneous. Before the defendant can say another word, bailiffs are on him. They slam him against the defense table and cuff him. The judge immediately begins speaking, firm and booming.
Let the record show that the defendant has just threatened a judicial officer. That will be another 5 years.
The defendant has just talked his way into a longer stay in prison. Number 3, the vandalism of justice. These rooms are designed to project an aura of stability. The heavy wooden tables, the flags, the elevated judge's bench, they're all symbols of the law's power. To destroy one of these objects is a symbolic act of defiance against the entire system. Our number 3 clip shows rage manifesting as pure destruction. The defendant, a man in his 40s, has just been sentenced. He takes a deep breath, but instead of speaking, he acts. With a roar of pure frustration, he grabs the heavy wooden lectern in front of him. This isn't a small, flimsy piece of furniture. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, he lifts it over his head. For a moment, the courtroom is frozen in disbelief. The judge, the lawyers, the jury, they all stare, stunned. Then, with all his might, he smashes it down onto the floor. The sound is like a gunshot, a deafening crack of splintering wood. The lectern, a symbol of legal argument, lies in a shattered heap. He turns his attention to the defense table, sweeping everything off it. Legal pads, water pitchers, and expensive laptops go flying. He has created a small circle of chaos around himself. On his face is not regret but a flicker of grim satisfaction. Number 2, a family's collapse. The stress of a trial and sentencing doesn't just fall on the defendant. For family members sitting in the gallery, the emotional toll can be immense. They endure days, weeks, months of testimony. In the gallery, an elderly woman, the defendant's grandmother, has been a constant presence. She has sat stoically, a pillar of quiet support. As the judge begins to read the sentence, the camera focuses on her face. You can see the lifetime of love and worry etched into her features. She is holding her breath, her hands gripping the bench. The judge announces a sentence of life without parole. The defendant drops his head in defeat. The grandmother lets out a small gasp. Her face goes pale, her eyes roll back in her head. She slumps forward, fainting dead away. She would have fallen to the floor if not for the family members beside her. Suddenly, the focus of the entire courtroom shifts. All attention is now on the back of the room, where a medical emergency is unfolding. The defendant, hearing the commotion, looks back and sees his grandmother being attended to by paramedics. His last image of freedom is of the matriarch of his family collapsing from the grief his actions have caused. Number 1. The ultimate defiance. We've seen collapses, attacks, and breakdowns, but this final clip is something different. It's not about losing control, it's about taking it. The defendant has just been sentenced to life in prison. He has shown no emotion. He is calm, almost serene. The judge instructs the bailiffs to take him into custody. The defendant looks at them, then looks at his chair, and then, very deliberately, he sits back down. He crosses his arms and stares straight ahead, placid. "Sir, you need to come with us," one of them says. The defendant doesn't respond, he doesn't even blink. He has decided he is not going anywhere. He becomes an immovable object. Bailiffs try to lift him, but he goes limp, dead weight. It takes 4 large bailiffs to pry him out and drag him inch by inch toward the exit. The journey across the courtroom floor is a slow, bizarre spectacle. His expression never changes. Serene detachment, supreme psychological warfare. Not a loss of temper, a total rejection of the court's power. He lost his case, but in his own mind, he won the final battle. So, what did you think? Which freakout shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below.